is exercising his right to a speedy trial. All right, joining me this hour, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Noah Pines, as well as trial attorney Kelly Hyman. Thank you both for joining me this evening. Truly appreciate it. And I want to begin with Kohberger. We'll get to Wisconsin in just a minute, but I just find it so interesting, the response. It's on one level, one can say, Noah, that that's much ado about nothing. Others are reading into it that perhaps they have some information that could suggest there may be some sort of alibi in this case. Your thoughts?
Well, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like an alibi that they don't want to disclose yet, but they want to sort of hint about. And by saying that it's going to come out through these other witnesses is also a hint, well, you know, that he's not going to talk about it, but through the state's witnesses, they may be able to prove he wasn't at the location, which would be a really big deal.
You know, what's interesting, Kelly, a lot of people wanted to understand, you know, what is the prosecution asking for? What is this, you know, alibi notice? Well, explain to our viewers that under these circumstances, if you have an alibi, it's something that you have to turn over to the state.
Absolutely. So you shouldn't, as a defense, should not be ambushed by the trial. So all of a sudden, a witness shows up at the trial that you had no idea. Trial by ambush. And so what the prosecution is doing is letting them know that this information is there. So in fact, that there's no trial by ambush, because in the court of law, a person is innocent until proven guilty by the jurors. So ultimately, it'll be up to the jurors to make a determination of whether he's guilty or innocent, but both sides have to provide the other one with evidence that they have.
You know, I was wondering, Noah, if there's some sense of gamesmanship here. What I noticed the defense has done a couple of times in this case is they're putting information out into the public, knowing that, you know, there's a voracious appetite for anything Kohberger out in the media. So if they even suggest, even the slightest suggestion that perhaps there may be an alibi in this case, it'll get reported, we'll talk about it, and then it's out in the zeitgeist. The fact that maybe this guy was not there. I don't know how that helps their case in the long run, but at the end of the day, is that the type of game you can see them perhaps playing here?
Well, I don't like to use the word game, because you shouldn't be playing with someone's life. If there is an alibi, then I don't think there's anything wrong with them saying, hey, it's coming out. We're just not telling you what it is right now. We're not showing you, you know, that could be, you know, the aces in the hole. We're not going to show you the aces in the hole. I'm going to tell you I have them, but I'm not going to show them to you till later. And that is reasonable. If they are saying that they have some sort of an alibi or some evidence that he's not there, and they don't end up, you know, using that in court, then that's a bad look, in my opinion. So hopefully these defense attorneys are smart enough that, you know, anytime I say something that gets out, which I typically don't talk to the public or to the media about a case, but if I say something, I can promise you I'll back it up.
All right, fair enough. Kelly Hyman, let's go back to Taylor Schabusiness case out in Wisconsin. One of the things that came up today, and you can't help but notice if you're watching the trial, there are, I don't want to call them antics, but there were a number of things going on with the defendant as she sat there. She did use her hand and make some sort of weird signal at a witness. She changed clothes. Oftentimes her face doesn't seem to match what's going on in the courtroom. What do you make of her antics?
Well, hopefully they're not antics. They are really what's going on with her, because as you know, there is an issue of mental health. However, that is not going to be heard until potentially she is found guilty. But the jurors are watching this, they're observing this, they're seeing this, and they're watching her demeanor, the way she handles herself, the fact that she changed her clothes. All of this is going to play a key when they make a determination whether to find her guilty or innocent.
Noah, there's a really interesting issue coming up before the court, and it's the idea of what the defense can actually argue. Now, we know, according to statute and according to case law in Wisconsin, voluntary intoxication is not a defense in issues and situations like this. But there's this sense that they want to argue, and they've asked the judge if they can do this, they want to argue that the long-term effects of use of a drug like methamphetamine can cause problems in the brain, which could lead to some kind of break that could lead to something like we saw here. The judge has not decided yet whether that type of argument is going to be allowed. Do you think that's something she might do in this case?
Well, they're definitely going to try to do that. And the question is, do they have the science to back it up? I mean, I've had lots of clients that have had traumatic brain injuries, either through concussions or accidents, where it clearly does impact their ability for impulse control and for decision making. But we have medical proof of that, whether that's through an MRI or brain imaging. So they're going to really have to tie this up if there is some sort of a brain damage from the use of drugs.
Yeah, now we've heard a little bit in the competency hearing about, her issues, and she certainly does have impulse control. What we heard from an expert was that there's a difference between knowing right from wrong and being able to conform to the law and impulse control. So yes, it is an uphill battle for the defense. We'll continue to watch closely, of course. Stand by, guys. I do have to take a break. Folks, still ahead. We get you the latest on the boyfriend hitman murder trial. That's happening in Texas. It is day one in that trial. An Iraq veteran is charged with killing his high school prom date's husband. You don't want to miss this case. It's happening right here on Court TV. Keep it here on your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, the Gilgo Beach serial murders, a cold case that now has a suspect in custody. 4 young women killed and buried along a remote stretch of beach highway. Our experts weigh in as we bring you the latest developments. Plus, defense attorneys are asking the judge to recuse herself in the case against Karen Reed. What today's hearing means for the case moving forward.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan.